Today we are going to be painting a bird. So this session we're going to be painting this lovely fun bird on a stick. I already have it all traced out, and we've talked about in the last few lessons about really the best way to trace out your bird. So go ahead and take a look at the last lesson to see how we did that. The paper I'm using today, I'm actually using my sketchbook, and I have already sketched it all out right here next to the tulips. We did that on the last lesson. So let's go ahead and get started. Is the reference photo that we're doing. So I don't want you to worry at all about the background. When I traced, I printed a black and white copy as well as a color copy so I can kind of see what I'm looking at. And I only traced the bird and the nice stick or twig that the bird is perched on. And I traced it out so you can get a really good idea of what I traced and what I didn't trace as far as this bird. I'm going to get started with glazing. And glazing is the process of building up color, meaning we're going to start with the lightest color that we see and then build up that color. I'm using the Artistro set. I have a set that's about 4 years old, and then I have a newer set as well. So this is what the newer set looks like. This is a set I've been using for a long time. And we are going to begin with, I think the easiest place for us to begin is this yellow. So as we're building up color, in watercolor, we want to make sure we're moving from light to dark. So anywhere where there's orange, there is this yellow in here, and there's specks of yellow in some places where the sun is kind of hitting on the bird's feathers. So I'm going to do anywhere where I see this red and yellow, I'm going to do it all yellow to begin with. So I've got 3 brushes, and oftentimes for a long time, for almost every project, I used a round 6. I really like my round 16 for mixing color and laying down a lot of color in one place. And then my round 2 is just something I use for detail. So, you know, during a project, like to keep my brushes in the water. If you keep your brushes in the water, as you can see, mine have just a slight crooked shape here, because I keep them in the water. If you want to just make sure they are straight all the time and don't get that little crooked shape, then you will take them out of the water in between each use. I want to keep them here. These are the same brushes I've been using for about 4 years. I don't mind that because really this tip comes to such a great point. I can still use it really well, and I like the handiness of keeping them all right here. So let's go ahead and begin by mixing. I do already on my palette have some yellow right here, and I'm going to begin with my round 6, and I'm just going to get it wet. I don't typically clean my palette in between projects because why? I mean, I can come back and use that just by adding a little bit of water. Now, I'm going to take this yellow and I'm going to begin putting it down anywhere where I know that there is yellow or orange. So just kind of bringing it down. I'm starting up here and getting this going. So yes, I called this a beginner class, and it's beginner, but I'll just warn you, this is not easy. If you're thinking, this feels hard, this looks hard, it's because it is. I'm never gonna lie to you about how these are easy or challenging. This is a pretty challenging project right here, but it's a great skill builder. And what I want you to do is I really want you to think about, you can do this. And, you know, you wouldn't be coming to find a class or a tutorial on how to paint if you didn't want a challenge, if you didn't want to be challenged. And I am going to challenge you here to try this. But here's the thing that I want you to know. It's not easy for me either, and that's okay. Easy is not always the good route to go. It is through doing a challenge, overcoming the challenge, sometimes painting things that you don't like the way it turned out, that you will start to see how you are building really beautiful skills. Now I want to let that dry. So I just put down this cute little yellow here. I want to go ahead and let that dry. And what I'm going to do is I'm rinsing off the yellow from my brush. And I think the next place while this is drying that I want to go is I want to lay down a little bit of this orangish pink color here. So I do have a little bit of orange-ish pink kind of already on my palette. The color that I think I used for that, if you're using the Artistro deck, the Artistro set, is the pumpkin. So I'm getting a little bit of that on my brush. I could even make it a bit pinker, redder. But I'm just going to put it down very, very, very lightly. I'm just going to go ahead and put that down. And, you know, I like to say this, my primary work is, I'm a life coach. My business is Yoke in Abundance. And I think that creativity and allowing ourselves to get lost in the process of creating, not being obsessed with the outcome of how it's going to look when we get done, but falling in love with the process, it is such a great skill builder for life, for personal development. And when you allow yourself to focus in on one thing like this, like painting, you'll be amazed at how it really helps you learn and gain inner wisdom. Okay, so I've kind of got that down. Now I really want to start bringing in some of the brown. And as you can see on the reference photo, there's this kind of bluish color and some white that kind of sticks through, some blue that comes in over here, very, very, very light highlight of blue, and kind of light over here as well. So I'm going to start with a very light brown that I'm going to be putting down where I see brown. So I'm going to pick up some brown, and I am looking at this set, and the color that I'm using, this is actually a raw umber that I'm using, and let's see what that looks like. Yeah, bringing it over to the tray, I'm getting a little bit more water in there, so I'm just bringing water over to the tray to that brown color, and then I'm going to kind of just, I don't even know what to say this is, but I'm kind of scraping off some of the water there. So I'm just picking up a little bit, and I'm going to slowly bring that on right here. And again, I'm using a glazing technique. And by glazing, I mean we are building up color. So I'm starting with a very light color, knowing that I can go darker. I can always go darker. I can't always go lighter, right? And so I'm just allowing this to be the first layer. Layering is just, it helps you develop patience. It helps you work slowly. And I think working slowly is really important. You don't want to go too fast. You can work on speed as you gain competency, but it also depends on why are you doing watercolor? I mean, I do watercolor because I find it relaxing. I'm connecting to my inner wisdom. I'm enjoying the process. And so it's not super important to me to necessarily go fast. And so I can take my time and build up the color. There's a little part of his wing over here that's brown. His left-hand side of his wing. And I'm just going to bring in a little of that brown color over here. So there's also some kind of brown in here. It's just light. I just want to bring that in. Okay, and I'm just checking to see around the yellow. I want to make sure that the yellow is dry because I want to do the beak. The beak is a dark brown, and so I'm going to get a little bit more of the pigment on my brush, bring it over here. I'm not going to go as dark yet as I fully want to go, but I do want to just kind of bring this in like so. I feel like that saying "like so" is something my grandma would say. But it conveys what we're trying to convey. So just starting with the beak like that. Now, rinsing off my brush and kind of on the side here, as you can see, just getting off the excess water right on the side like that. And now the next place that I want to go is I want to start bringing some more orange into this breast area for the bird. So for you, if you're using the Artistro watercolor set, I believe it is about the pumpkin color that you might want. And the pumpkin color is pretty orange, maybe even a bit fleshy, you could say. And I want to bring in a little bit of red into that. I want to make my orange just a little bit more of a red orange. So I'm going to pick up what for you I believe is the watermelon pink. I'm going to get a little bit of that. I'm going to bring it in. I might even do the cherry, just a touch of the cherry, bringing that in, mixing that in, and getting a little bit of water, more water on my brush, bringing it over here. I think even a bit more cherry. I'm pulling that color in. So lovely. Okay, I think that's about the orangish red that I want. And I'm going to start up here above his beak. Now again, I want to leave some of this yellow. So I'm just making these little tiny straight line moves, leaving a little bit of the yellow in there. And then right here, there's almost this little yellow line. It's not like an exactly straight line, but it's like a yellow highlight, and I want to see if I can preserve that. There we go. So watercolor is the process of looking really deeply. You have to look at the reference photo. What do you see? And yes, we are at I think that when you're a beginner watercolor painter, you are trying typically to really just paint what you see. Can you get it to look like what you see in the reference photo? And then once you begin mastery of that, you can start to get a little bit more creative. And if you're a rule breaker out there and you want to get creative before you have mastery of those basics, you know what? I'm not going to stop you from doing that. Like pulling in different colors that you see. And I'm just moving this orange down. It's so much fun. Just really enjoy. On the right hand side over here, I'm just pulling this down and I'm going to leave a little yellow. I saw a little yellow line almost on this side, highlight. There's a lot of yellow over here that I want to leave. Just kind of make sure I'm keeping that nice and yellow. Slowly pulling this down. Again, there's just some spots where you just want to make sure you're kind of leaving it a little yellow, but slowly, bringing in this nice kind of red, orange color. I'm making these very small little strokes because I want it to look feathered here. Bringing a little bit more orange pigment and red pigment over. Yeah, How lovely, right? Look at that. Super fun. Slowly. When I make these small little strokes, the water kind of dries and you can almost see the stroke. It won't be that way everywhere per se, but we'll just give that illusion that they're feathers, that they're rumpled. In watercolor, oftentimes it's more about the illusion of what it is than what it actually is. There, so we're starting to see, I can even get a little bit more red, I think, over here on the left-hand side is a little bit redder. So I want to add a little more red to my orange. And I want to just over here bring that color in. I'm just gently moving my brush around. It's really a lovely color that we've got going. So that is starting to take shape. Now I'm going to rinse that off and I want to get a darker brown now. So I want to use my cinnamon brown, and the cinnamon brown is over here. It's on the new set, and I'm just picking up a lot of pigment on my brush. And I want to see what that looks like. Yes. Okay. So now I'm going to come over to the beak and I'm going to do this top part. There is a line kind of in the middle of the beak. And it's a light brown line. So I want to kind of keep the integrity there. Here we go there. And so I'm just going to kind of leave that line. Just like that. And I'm going to let that be just like it is. Now, the next thing that I want to do is I'm going to get a little bit more of that cinnamon on my brush and coming over here, maybe a little bit more water and trying to get some of the water off my brush like this, really. And just trying to pick up the pigment. And I want to start kind of feathering over here as well. So the brown, I want to leave this highlight. I'm going to come in and bring a more reddish orange color in the top of the head right here, a reddish orange brown. So I want to just feather like I was doing in the other places, but feathering back. Just being really cognizant of what I'm doing, mindful of my brush strokes. And even just bringing lightly these feather strokes in here. And then it doesn't look as feathered back here, so I'm going to just get it a little darker, bring it in. It's a little darker, but not so feathered right over here. And bringing that in. Slowly bringing it down the back. Kind of right here. It's darker. I just want to applaud you for trying this bird. Birds are just they're not an easy subject matter. I don't know what it is. They're really fun, but they're not easy. And it's a great challenge, especially if you want to be doing the glazing and getting to know what that feels like. Glazing, just the building up color, the way we're building it up. Just bringing it darker in over here. Et voila, okay. And that's just so nice. Slowly coming in over here. It's like how that's starting to come together. Now, as you can see, the eye looks super weird right now. And what is interesting, let's talk about this eye. So there's not a white spot, but there is like a little blue highlight, and it's almost like a turquoise teal. So there's a light blue in the Artistro palette. It looks like this. And I'm gonna put that right where I see that highlight. And I'm gonna need that to dry. We're gonna have to let that dry quite a bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and just let that dry. But you know, this light blue over here, it's actually in the feathers a bit right here. I don't know why, but that's just in some spots, and I'm just pulling that in. Letting it be light blue over there, maybe even a little down here. Just kind of gonna let that dry now. So the next thing that I wanna do is I'm gonna rinse off that brush really well. And then I'm gonna get a little bit, I'm gonna mix a little bit of yellow and this light orange that's just on my palette. And I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna bring that into this front. It's kind of white, kind of yellowish, dirtyish. And I'm just going to bring this very, very light color all around. It's like a dirty white. And it's such a cute little bird, right? Okay, so I want to darken up his little legs and claws, and I'm gonna mix a little purple into this brown, and I'm gonna bring some details into his legs over here, just with the nice tip of my brush. This left side, just letting that be dark and just a little bit right here. And a little bit in here. Little bird claws are actually not easy. They're a little transparent looking. Just not the easiest thing to paint. So I'm kind of painting some stuff that I don't see in the reference photo and just kind of letting that be what it is. Now, I really need to let these places in here dry more, but this part of his head, that is kind of this, it's the cherry kind of mixed in with the brown right here. Just gonna kind of mix that all together and just make sure there's not too much water on my brush, and just kind of give a little bit more feathering of it. Just letting that be what it needs to be. Now I want to rinse off my brush, get the red off of my brush. Really here, trying to get a lot of the water off the side, and then picking up more brown, probably more of that cinnamon brown color. And I want to play with what I'm seeing around the eye. There's kind of this little circle almost. Like this. These just tiny little feathering it out just like so. Like I said, these birds are just not an easy subject matter. So you're doing great. Thanks for hanging in here. Just moving around here, just really getting that color out. Just darkening it up right here. Getting much darker along this side at the moment. Beautiful. Okay, so you can see the detail is starting to come out. It is starting to really come alive. And I love seeing it come alive like this. Now my brown is really dark. I'm gonna get a little bit more water on my brush, really lightening this up, because I don't want to go super light. I don't want to go super dark. I want to start bringing some of this color in here. These feathers over here on the left side, just feathering that in. It's really fun. Just kind of the bird feathers over here, they're not all one direction. They're kind of crisscrossing. You just got to pay attention to that. Allow yourself to play with what you see and just play with those crisscross feathers and just let it be fun. Okay, so that's starting to coming alive right there. It's a little pinky down here because it's getting the reflection. As you can see, this must be a sunset or a sunrise, and it's getting a little pinky purple down here. So I've got this tiny little pinkish purplish color that I'm gonna bring over here. Yeah, that's nice. And I like it. I mean, we're gonna bring that in on the bottom. I can probably even bring in a little bit more color. Just allowing myself to not be too tight with my brush strokes, just playing a little bit, see the reflection, see what's coming up, pulling that in, being not afraid to pull that in. And I do see it really, I can add a little bit more yellow and bring more yellow in here, brighten it up a bit. Just don't have to be so particular. Just brighten that up. I'm really gonna brighten up this the breast area with the yellow. I'm gonna yellow in some instances. It will make things pop. So I want to bring a little bit more in. I'm just gonna pull that all over right here. Yeah, see what that did? See how that brightened that up? I'm gonna put that right here. Pulling more of that yellow. Yeah, there we go. Nice, beautiful front breast of that bird now. Now I want to check in with the eye. Yep, it's dry. So now I want to bring in the dark area and leaving that blue. So I'm moving over to my onyx black, getting a lot of that pigment onto my brush. And yeah, there we go. So now I'm just going to go ahead and bring this in. And again, I'm just kind of leaving that little blue spot right here. And see how instantly having the eye there totally changes the picture. And I'm gonna bring a little bit of the dark right here underneath. And give it a little highlight under just this area with the black, bringing that in a bit. And I'm going to bring the black over to the brown, darkening up that brown area. And we've got this spot that's really dark right by the eye, and I'm just going to feather that in, letting that be nice and dark right there. And just kind of letting, if anywhere that's already wet, kind of letting that carry around and letting it do the watercolor magic that happens when you bring that in. So I'm just loving seeing where this is going. It's fun, you know, every watercolor picture goes through this like messy middle spot, and we are slowly coming out of the messy middle and bringing more definition in. So I'm going to pick up more of the cinnamon color, bringing that onto this dark area. And I'm gonna kind of, again, feather that in over here. And I'm very happy that I did it in my sketchbook next to these really fun tulips. The tulips were so much fun. That was a project we did in the membership, the watercolor membership, and I think it's been one of my favorite botanicals that we've done so far. So just bringing these colors in. It's nice and brown over here. And there's a nice dark brown. It's much browner here than I originally gave it credit for. Just kind of pulling that in. And you know, there's some darker spots over here as well that I can just slowly be bringing that in. And I'm letting it be kind of a cross section, but messily. This is not a precise thing here with these bird feathers. And again, I don't want you to get discouraged if this is feeling hard, or it just is one of those things where it takes practice, it takes time, and the bird is not easy. But look, you're doing it, you're here. Don't compare your work. Don't speak poorly about your work. Just notice what might be coming up for you when it gets challenging, because this is challenging. It's not easy. So I just did this cross section of hairs right here. Now I'm going to rinse off my brush, and I'm going to bring in and get a little bit of red on. And I'm going to just bring some of that red in here. Again, it's just these little patches of feathers where just kind of letting it do its thing. It's just messy, right? He's a little puffed up, just a little. Great, so that bird is really popping. It's really coming into its own. I want to show you something. On his beak, there is this reflection right here, that red reflection. I want to make sure I get that orange on the beak like that. Getting the red and the orange. I'm just going to do that line right here. Yeah, how cute. Okay. I'm going to bring in more pink. These are I'm seeing a very pink color right here. I don't know if that was my printer, but I like it. I want to go with it. I want to make it pinker. I'm just bringing that in right here, letting that do its thing. And I'm going to make his sharp little claw nail things. What are talons? I guess they're talons. I don't know if on a little bird like this, if you would want to call it a talon or not, but I'm going to give him a little talons. How fun. Look at that. And the more detail you bring in, the more this will just start to come alive. So, you know, there's a lot going on. There's some shadow happening right here and under here on this. I'm not going to work on trying to get my branch too detailed, but I'm going to start with the pink. And you might be thinking, why are you starting with the pink? Because I want to leave some of those highlights that I see. And I definitely see some pink in here. I'm just going to let it be in there. And as we cover certain spots up with brown, it will be, you won't even know that all of this was pink. But I'm just gonna get that mussied up in here. Yeah, there we go. So I'm gonna let that dry, and I'm gonna take a look at what's happening with this cute little bird of ours. I'm gonna get a little bit more brown on my brush. I see some details around the eye that I want to bring in. And I need more brown. There we go. Okay, so look around here. We got some brown that I just need to bring in right there. Yep. And maybe even kind of a little line right there. Bring some in at the top of his head like this. Yeah. Wow, that's so nice. Okay, now what else do we want to do? I see a little orange spot right there. I'm gonna bring in that orange spot. Just rinsing off my brush. I'm gonna bring that orange. Yes, look at that. So cute. Little spots like this. You can even bring a little orange right here. So our bird has really come to life, okay? So this bird, we're just doing what we need to do. I can even get a little bit more brown on my brush and kind of bring it in here in certain spots if I want to. But I do like what I've got going on here. And for a beginner bird, I feel like we have really brought into focus what's happening with this cute little bird. This is going to take a little bit of time to dry, but I'm going to go ahead and rinse off these pieces right here and get more brown on my brush. This is brown. It's just I love working in a sketchbook. I love having a nice collection of pieces. So normally my favorite watercolor paper to use is Arches, and the paper in this particular watercolor book, it's not Arches. I don't exactly know what it is, but it works. It will work. It will be all right. It gets the job done. Not my favorite, not my least favorite. But there we go. It's just really working here. Now, as this comes down, this color turns almost gray, so I'm gonna get a little gray on my brush right here. I'm gonna add that in. I'm just gonna bring in the gray. And look how cute our little guy is. This in here is, I think, a little oranger than that pink. So I'm gonna bring in the orange color. Just drop it in, let it do its thing. Same here. Here's really where it's pink, but there's some yellow I see in there. I'm gonna drop in some yellow. And just letting this, I like what we've done with this, and I feel like we could just kind of let it be here if we wanted to, but I want to get a little orange. This could be a little oranger right here. As you can see, that orange is kind of going in there. That's fine. I'm not super worried about it. I'm gonna just kind of bring that in here. And now I'm just gonna let this be what it is. If you wanted to put a background in, you could. I'm not gonna put a background in on this one right now. Later, when it dries, you could come in with micron pens and kind of highlight some of these spots if you really wanted to. But for now, this is a great start to a beginner bird. We've got the birds and the flowers. Maybe we need to do a bee next time. I would love to hear more. If you want to comment and let me know what else you would like to paint. But great job. If you are a beginner and you just started this and you are trying this bird for the first time, this is a fantastic start. I want you to pat yourself on the back, and I will see you in the next lesson.